Welcome to Class 8, Datafication, Future Directions and Ethical Considerations. My name is Hanna Trittin-Ulbrich and I'm an Assistant Professor for Business Ethics at Leuphana University Lüneburg. As we have learned throughout this course, datafication is a social phenomenon, and it gave rise to other phenomena including new visibilities, new platform and crowd-based business models, or algorithmic management, and relates to questions of governance and sustainability. In this sense, it has implications for individuals, organizations, and society in general. The ability to extract, analyze, and potentially manipulate new large sets of data creates certain implications for individuals. On the one hand, it creates new ways of working, and we are increasingly facing more complex work environments where managers, employees, and workers have to deal with automated work, but also with additional layers of information about work processes, which then, of course, blur the boundaries between work and private lives, as, for example, employee behavior is easy to monitor and track via digital technologies. This has implications if we think about the increasing use of home office settings in the pandemic. Additionally, we observe that datafication gives rise to surveillance and monitoring potentials, which can be used positively by individuals to monitor and track everyday interactions, and we observe phenomena such as the quantified self-movement, where people trace their interactions, activities, but also heart rates and monitor bodily functions on a daily basis. But again, can also observe the dark side of this manipulation potential when we think about corporations tracking and potentially manipulating consumer behavior. The implications of datafication for organizations are manifold, and we observe that particularly private organizations use datafication by embracing collaborative paradigms, working more closely together on a data set basis with other organizations, thereby opening themselves to the search of value outside of organizations and new forms of organizing, such as the open strategy movement. Additionally, what Mikkel Flickerblom has suggested also in his talk are the datafication gives rise to new visibilities and new layers of information that become available to organizations that can be potentially controlled. And finally, we observe that datafication gives rise to data-driven competition amongst many organizations who are becoming aware of their access to unique data sets. Public organizations face new challenges and, let's say, opportunities by providing data-based public services. And in many countries, public services increasingly digitalized. This, of course, creates new questions of legitimation and, of course, creates new struggles in the context of legislation and whether and how public organizations can be held accountable for machine learning and self-learning algorithms. Finally, non-governmental, voluntary, hybrid, or fluid organizations face the increasing personalization of politics, meaning that public or political issues become increasingly personalized based on the recommendation systems that certain platforms provide. But also we can see that activists use these platforms to collectively mobilize and counteract or protest established public and private organizations. The implications for society are manifold, and two aspects should be here mentioned. First of all, datafication has given rise to new value-adding infrastructures and technologies. This, of course, has raised crucial questions regarding the power concentration in the internet and digital infrastructures systems. If we consider many internet and platform corporations being monopolists. And secondly, we observe that new opportunities for the division of labor emerge through the ability to analyze data around the world, meaning we can see that increasingly employment options are emerging also in countries where potentially employment is usually difficult to gain. However, we simultaneously observe that this also has created a reinforcement of inequality and a new race to the bottom amongst platform workers. So what now? The internet and digital infrastructures are imbued with power hierarchies as outlined. As we have learned, datafication allows for the reorganization of management organization processes and will have a long-lasting effect on society as well. Digital technologies allow for the intrusion of individual privacy, discrimination, surveillance, and behavioral manipulation, only to name a few problems emerging from datafication. These and other problems pose serious threats, particularly for democratic liberal societies. The question is, what do we do about this as society, but also as individual users? Only a few people can afford to disconnect completely. Most have no option but to work pragmatically with and within these infrastructures. The question is, what now? Considering the dark and highly problematic nature of phenomena surrounding datafication, should we abandon the internet altogether? Should we quit using social media? Should we forbid corporations to track consumer behavior, for example? Should we ban internet platform economies? Probably not. The developments in smart technologies, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are now an integral part of our societies and how our society is organized and decisions are made, both in rhetoric and practice. How we come to understand the world, what services we are able to access, where we are able to go, what we are able to do, and the ways we are governed all potentially feature data practices that shape the terms and conditions for our participation in society. The processing of data from across our lives can fundamentally shape social relations, the kinds of information valued, and what is knowable and therefore acted upon in society. Datafication, therefore, is not just about technical questions, but really relates to long-standing social, political, economic, and cultural issues. The question is, how does fair, ethical, and just datafication look like, and how does datafication shape society? We must raise questions such as what role do data and algorithms play in actively mediating and normalizing discourses and social conditions, including discourses, for example, about human appearance and essence. At this moment, in the 21st century, we see a new form of extravism that is well underway, one that reaches into the furthest corners of the biosphere and the deepest layer of human existence and cognitive and affective being. Concluding, this will not be addressed just with the right coding or the right set of data for training algorithms, for example. Instead, the answer lays in society. We must question the broader institutional, contextual, and social orders that shape the use of digital technologies, including algorithmically moderated systems. As scholars such as Sita Peña-Gardaharan and Niklas Yetze have been pointing out, this realization firstly, and for many counterintuitively, implies decentering technology in discourses on the dark side of datafication. Counterintuitively, because contemporary discussions about automated computer systems often depict technology as the savior, with arguments for the need for more fair, accountable, and transparent machine learning to counter biases, racist, or sexist automated systems. Yet, as we have seen throughout the course, discrimination is tied to larger processes of oppression, which leaves socially different groups vulnerable to processes of violence, marginalization, exploitation, cultural imperialism, and powerlessness. A reflective turn thus requires acknowledgement not only of the growing threats of surveillance capitalism, but also the other social institutions or practices which have contributed to differential treatment of social groups. And secondly, and relatedly, it applies that we develop new and better guidelines for working with data in just and ethical ways. One example is this set of guidelines developed by a distinguished group of scholars to help students and researchers do better work and ultimately become more successful in their work with data, while also avoiding larger complications, including public mistrust. To achieve this, scholars must shift from a mindset that is rigorous when focused on techniques and methods and naive when it comes to ethics. It is no longer enough to simply state that data is already public. Instead, we have to recognize that data are people and that they are tied up in deeper structural, historical, and ethical issues. Guidelines such as these are thus not developed to stop data work, but rather to make sure that the work performed is sound, accurate, and maximizes the good while minimizing the harm. The problems and choices students, researchers, and organizations face are real, complex, and challenging, and so too must be the ways we encounter them. Big data should be treated with respect that it deserves, and we need to recognize that unethical data work undermines the production of knowledge as well as organizational integrity. Thank you for your attention. These are the references to my talk.